The series begins with a group of 5 students hanging out in a room. 2 guys and 3 girls. After downing a can of alcohol, Jumping stands up and informs the group he's going out to get more beer. As he gets to the door, he stares back briefly, and a girl on the sofa stares back at him before he finally leaves. As he walks out, Jumping reveals that he was hoping she would offer to go with him. After he steps out, is surprised when a female voice calls after him, and he turns around to see the girl that was lying on the sofa. She catches up to him and tells him she needs to get ice cream, so she was accompanying him. This girl's name is Alicia, and she is a year older than Jumping. He advises her to buy a big bowl of ice cream to gain weight and get rid of unwanted attention, and she smiles and teases him while calling him a naughty boy through Jumping's thoughts. He reveals he has a crush on Shayet, but he hasn't told her. The do hold hands. As they walk down to the store, Shia suddenly pulls Jumping to a dark corner and holds him against the wall and leans in to kiss him. They both walk on after, and Jumping reveals how they first met. Jumping is seen on a bus returning to school after the holidays when he receives a text from Ju, his crush from high school. He realizes that she's asking him to hang out, and he agrees to meet up with her. Jumping decides that he needs to change his clothes, so he drops off the bus at a stop and rushes home. At the entrance to the house, he finds a girl leaning against the wall and flicking a lighter on and off continuously. He wonders if she is waiting for someone as he unlocks the gate, but he concludes she is weird and walks in. On his way out, after changing his dress, Jumping finds her outside still leaning against the wall. He realizes that her face looks vaguely familiar. He asks if they have met before, but she ignores him. Jumping walks off, but he stops when he suddenly realizes that she is Shia of Dream Suite, the celebrity that his friend Guzu is obsessed with. He turns around and asks if she is Shia, but she walks menacingly toward him and suddenly rushes at him with her lighter in hand for a split second. It seems as though she had slashed him across the face, but apparently she had turned off her lighter at the last moment. Jumping is stunned by this, so he stumbles backward, but Shia laughs at him and calls him slow for not dodging her. When she ran toward him, Jumping threatens to call the cops on her, but she accuses him of being a stalker and dares him to call the police. Jumping immediately apologizes and explains to her that he's not a stalker. He also sings and dances to one of her songs before awkwardly rushing off to meet Ju, chanting "Meet you, chanting, meet you," standing outside the restaurant while stomping her feet to ward off the cold. They both walk in and narrates his ordeal from earlier. They talk for a bit, and Jumping asks if she has a boyfriend, but she becomes defensive. Jumping tries easing the tension by asking if they could hang out at his place later after dinner. Jumping wraps his scarf around Zu's neck and she thanks him. Jumping suggests that they meet up the next day with the excuse of returning the scarf, but she only smiles at this, and they part ways. When he returns home, Jumping is surprised to find Shia still standing outside in the cold. Zoom warns him not to tell anyone who she is or where she lives here, and she threatens to beat him if he does so. After threatening him, Shia washed back in, and Jumping walks into the house to find her unconscious on the floor. He rushes towards her and makes a call to 911. The next morning, Jumping wakes to someone continuously ringing his doorbell. When he opens the door, he finds Shia food in hand, and she offers to have breakfast with him. When she offers to have breakfast with him, Jumping lies that he has had breakfast and slams the door in her face while in class. Jumping texts you to meet up with her, but she tells him she's busy. His classmates peek into his phone and tease him for being rejected, but Jumping tries correcting them. Meanwhile, Ju is seen in her classroom, and it is obvious that she's not busy, but she had only made an excuse not to see Jumping. Later on, Jumping has seen returning home from school, and he is concerned that he has not seen Ju in a week. Suddenly, Shia appears next to him and asks how this day went, but he ignores her and walks in while repeatedly saying no one is ever nice to him for no reason. As days go by, it begins to seem like Shia is stalking Jumping as he sees her everywhere, but whenever she tries talking to him, he ignores her. Sometime later, Shia comes looking for Jumping in his lecture hall, and everyone stares at her as she makes her way to him. Once she reaches him, Jumping holds her hand and pulls her out of the hall. He asks how she found him, and she tells him that she heard him call out his name, and department chanting tells her that he's not interested in her and he already has someone in his heart. She laughs and tells him she isn't interested in him that way, she only wants to be friends with him because she is lonely, she has no friends, she also reveals that she rent the whole floor of the apartment. She asks if he knows why she is suspended. That's what is keeping her from making friends. She's trying to change herself. He takes her number and asks that they have dinner together sometime later. As they walk home from school, he asks if he should call her sis. She tells him to be casual with her, but when he calls out her name, Shia, she turns around and holds her finger to his lips as surprise. But as they walk on people around or complimenting her beauty, she asks that they have dinner together, but he tells her he is attending a party that night. She later tells Jitang that when they become close friends, she hopes he doesn't fall in love with her, and also she doesn't fall in love with him. At the party, Genting has offered beer, but he refuses. The senior asks him if she is his girlfriend, but he reveals she is only his neighbor in an attempt to get Jumping to give him Shay's number. He makes Jumping drink a lot of alcohol. Is unaware that Jumping hardly gets drunk. He gets a call from Shia, and when he picks up, he calls her Miss Smash Her Head. She asks if he is drunk, and he claims it is impossible. He walks out of the bar as they talked, and the scene senior is suddenly right beside him. He takes Jumping's phone and talks to Shia while they both struggle for the phone. Shia drops the calls. The senior is throwing up by the road and Jumping is patting his back when she arrives behind him, a bottle of alcohol in hand. The senior tries to woo her, but she asks him to stop embarrassing himself. She holds Jumping's hand and pulls him along. Asina rushes towards them and holds on to Genting's other hand. He and Shia begin to pull Jumping towards each other, but she stops and suddenly swings the bottle towards his face. The senior dares Shy to hit him, but Jumping immediately comes between them. Genting takes the wine bottle from Shia and drinks out of it before convincing his senior to drink the remaining contents. The senior raises his head to drink all of it, but when he looks back down, Shia and Jumping are long gone. Shia and Jumping run down the road, and they later make a stop to catch their breath. Jumping scolds Shia for trying to hurt someone with a bottle, and she suddenly starts crying. She tells him no matter how hard she tries to stay away from trouble, it always finds her. Chanting realizes that she is prone to violence, and he asks her about it, but Shia tells him that it's a secret. He promises to be with her during crucial times and also hang out with her. Shy smiles and reveals she bought the alcohol so the two of them could drink together. Genting asks her how she found him, and she points at the posters on the wall. As they walk down the road, he sees a back-to-school poster for the College of Literature, which is used apartment. He runs towards the venue hoping to see her. He finds her outside, and they wave at each other. But she stops suddenly when she sees someone behind him. She recognizes Shia right away and calls out her name, drawing everyone's attention to her. Ju walks up to her and introduces herself. People standing around begin to talk about Shia's alleged scandal until Shia calls Jewish skank and walks away. Ju and Genting leave together, but they're unable to get a ride because it's way too late in the night. He was stranded and has nowhere to go. She reveals that her parents will be pissed off if she stays out, so she accepts Jumping's offer to spend the rest of the night at his apartment. Back at the apartment, both Zhu and Jumtang plead with Shia to Kazi's parents, pretending to be her friend, and tell them she is spending the night at her apartment. Shia is initially hesitant, but helps you out in the end. She also asks her to spend the night or place, and the three of them end up drinking. The girls become friends in their drunken state, and Shia walks out to get some fresh air. Chanting realizes that she is lightly dressed, so he pulls off his sweatshirt and takes it to her. She asks how long he has. Known Jew and Jumping tells her that they both attended the same tutorial class before college. Shire reveals she is jealous of their friendship, as none of hers had ever lasted long. Chanting holds Shia's hand while she cries quietly. The next morning, Genting is seen throwing up in the bathroom while Shia sits outside the bathroom door. She had a surprise when he walks out and compliments her eyes color, but she says nothing. Genting asks for Zhu, and Shia tells him she already took a shower and left early to avoid getting yelled at by her parents. Shia walks up to her cupboard and she reaches out for her lighter and a box of cigarettes, but Jumping comes behind her and gets it for her when he asks if the say right belongs to her. She takes it from him and empties it down the toilet. Jumping is curious about her, so he decides to look her up on the internet. but she enters the room at that moment, and Jumping hides his phone. He is mesmerized by her eyes, so he rushes out to dispose of some trash while shouting out that he is not. Attracted to her, Shintang is surprised to find her watching him, but she merely smiles and invites him to have takeout with him. A month later, Jumping, Xie, and Zhu go out to see the cherry blossoms, and Xia is very excited because she had not seen them in a long while. Xie gets distracted by them. Cherry blossoms, Jumping tells you his classmates are asking who his girlfriend is, but she says nothing. They catch up to Xia and take some pictures, but after some time, Xia and Jumping sees you off back to her school. Jim Tang asks you if they could visit the library together, but she refuses while telling him that it's better they read separately since they have different majors. Chanting feels unhappy because you dismissed his offer, and Xia notices this on their way home, so she tries to cheer him up by showing him a photo of you she took that day. When he sees it, he smiles and asks her to share the pictures on their group chat. She asks if he likes her that much, but he initially denies it before walking away. However, he returns and asks her if his feelings are so obvious. He also says he knows she isn't interested in him and walks away. Later on, Zhu returns Jumping scarf, and a classmate walks over and reveals the scarf has been on Zhu's table for days. Zhu awkwardly dismisses her, and they leave together. Other over times, you continually declines Genting's offer to hang out and only agrees when Jumping invites Xia to hang out with him. Jumping tells Xia that Zhu is his first love, even though she is not into him. Later on, Young's, a friend of Genting's, invites him to a get-together. Is going to be between 3 girls and 3 boys. Xia barges into Jumping's room and gives him a makeover. She tells him that her reason for this is to make him look the best at the get-together and also to see how attractive he can look. She forbids him from having a girlfriend because they won't be able to hang out together anymore. If he does, when he insists, it won't change their friendship. She teases him, telling him friends don't hold hands. Jumping is fashionably late to the party, and one of the girls with red hair immediately takes a liking to him. The other 2 girls put lipstick on his lips for fun, and they took a Polaroid photo of him. When he sees it, Chanting realizes he had on the same color of lipstick Xie uses. Chun Tang is forced to sing a karaoke song, and the red-haired girl watches him while considering if she should make a move on him or not. As the party continues, Chanting picks up an earring from the floor that belongs to the girl with red hair. He gives her the earring, and they talk briefly about piercings. Later on, the boys and girls are paired up as 3 couples to play wedlock wine, and Jim Tang is paired with a red-haired girl, but the first 3 rounds. The bottle doesn't stop on Jim Tang, but it does on the 4th try. Jim Tang and Rooney are asked to share a kiss for the 4th and final round, but both watch awkwardly before Rouhani suddenly downs a glass of alcohol and leans in for a kiss. Meanwhile, Xia tosses and turns in bed wondering what. Chanting is up to remember when I thinks about how she had lost all hope for love before showing up for the get-together. She had also hoped to meet a guy to help her get over her previous breakup. She makes her move to kiss Jumping, but she gets nervous, so she leans back without kissing him. She regains her confidence and downs another glass of alcohol before leaning in to kiss him, but he holds his finger against her lips. He reveals he has not had his first kiss, and he doesn't want to remember it as a kiss he shared with a senior during Truth or Dare, as it would make him look pathetic. The whole group laughs at this, and they decide he should sing instead. After the party, Ruining is tipsy and wants to go home, so Jumping offers to walk her home. He got lipstick on his lips, but she gets jealous when he tells her they played wedlock wine while he's trying to convince her that it is not as she thinks. She holds his face and leans in to kiss him briefly, but when she tries moving away, Genting pulls her in and kisses her after they both kiss. Xie goes into her apartment and asks him to come in, but he tells her he'll head in later. He wakes up with a start the next day as he can't get over the fact that he had his first kiss with Xia. Jumping leaves the house for the library hoping to clear his head, and he finds a poster requesting a female housemate. Jumping eventually discovers that Xia is renting out at school. John Tang is unable to concentrate on reading as his mind keeps going back to the kiss he shared with Xia. After he returns home, Jumping knocks at Xia's door and he asks about the for rent sign. He also tells her that he wants to talk about their kiss, so She lets him in. When Shia talks bluntly about the kiss, he falls his knees in embarrassment, and she was also shocked to learn that she was his first kiss. They sit, and it tells him that she's renting out a room in hopes of getting another friend. He asks if they could both go out with you after exams, and she agrees to this. She also asks if she would hold his hands, and he lets her, but Shia holds his hands and leans her head on his shoulder. As the days go by, Shia gets startled whenever he remembers the kiss he shared with Shia him, his viewing school, and they end up walking back home. Together, Genting asks that they hang out later during the weekend, and you ask him to follow her to the library. He does so, but they are both assigned to seats very far from each other. While they are waiting in line, a male friend of Zhu walks up to her. They chat for a while. Zhu's male friend asks if Jim Tang is her boyfriend. She denies it. Chun Tang is angered by this as he realizes that June purposely refused to hang out with him since all these while, so he makes up an excuse to leave. Chanting feels betrayed by this, but he realizes he has not been fair to her either, since he had also flirted with Xia and even gone so far as to kiss her. Rory has seen preparing for exams when she decides that she needs to get over her breakup by becoming more social. Ruining decides that the first step she could take was to get an apartment off campus. We're shown a flashback from the past when Ju and Jump Tang were still high school students. They walked towards Yu's house to get her notebook, and on their way Zhu tells him that she had gotten suspended from school, and that was why she had not been attending classes. When they arrive at her house, Zhu's father finds them outside and scolds her harshly for hanging out with a boy and bringing home Yu's angerman, calls her embarrassing names, and she flings her school bag at him and tells him she feels embarrassed to be born into his family. Zhu runs off after grabbing Jim Ting's hand, and when they finally stop for air, she apologizes that he had to witness what happened. You also asks that he forgets it were brought back to the present as you finds Jim Tang at a cafe outside the library. Hugh grabs his hand and asks him to go somewhere with her. She takes him to a rooftop, and they both watch the night sky. In the city, she tries telling him the reason why she brought him there, but she refuses to complete the sentence and asks them to go back to reading. She leaves him behind while speedily walking out of the library as she reveals that she likes jumping, but she's afraid to confess her feelings because they can't be together, especially since her situation wouldn't allow it. Jumping returns home and wakes up the next day to find Shia staring at him. She tries to make him get out of bed, but he doesn't move an inch, and he asks her to go and make other friends. Shia is angered by this, but she ignores his words and flips him over with his bedspread. Genting snatches it from her and goes back to bed, and Shia leaves angrily. Chanting wakes up in a sore mood as he is yet to figure out why Zhu took him to the rooftop. Ruino comes around, and Shia calls Jumping to help her with moving her things into the apartment. Chanting gets out of bed to meet her. He is shocked, however, when he finds out the new housemate is Rooney. We're taken to a flashback of the past. Rooney is seen leaving the library when she comes across the poster outside Jumping and Shia's apartment. She knocks on the door, and she's answered by Shia, whose beauty immediately captivates her. Shia gives her a tour of the apartment, and she gives her a condition that she has a male neighbor upstairs and he'll be coming around a lot. Ronnie tells her that she doesn't mind, but she almost loses her mind when she enters Shi's walk-in closet, as she is mind blown by the numerous designer bags and dresses. Shia notices this and tells her she can have some of the bags. Rooney snaps out of her reverie and is surprised to discover that Jumping is the male housemate that Shia had mentioned. Rooney treats Jumping coldly while he tries to talk to her, and Tang wonders why he is being treated that way, but he suddenly remembers that he forgot to text her after the last time that they met. After Ruining is fully settled in, they all go out for dinner. They'd all have alcohol, and later on Sherry goes out to get some air, and Jumping and Ruining make up their differences. When they walk out of the restaurant, they talk about the get-together, aware that Shea could hear them. In his drunken state, Jumping reveals he is falling in love with her. While thinking he is talking to Shia, and Ruining misunderstands and assumes he is interested in her, he collapses on her, so Shia rushes forward and takes him home after she attacks him. In bed, she asks if he is happy now, but he is confused. She asks him to scoot over and She sits down next to him. She asks that they date officially, but Jumping refuses. While thinking that Shia is toying with him, Sharia tries convincing him otherwise, but Jump Tank is still curious about why Zuma had taken him to the rooftop earlier that day. Shia realizes that Jump Tank is uninterested in anything she has to say, so she calls him a dummy and lays back down. The next morning, Genting wakes up. Before Shia, he stares at her for a while and stands up to sneak out. Shia wakes up just then and stops him since nothing happened between them. They leave together and she suddenly turns around and rubs his jaw to fill his beard, where when he sees them and is shocked, she finds out they spent the night together. Jumping looks like Shia on the internet. She was portrayed as a violent person. He calls Gujri's friend. He is mad at Jump Tank for telling him to his mom. Genting asks if he is still a fan of, and he tells him she is his friend and they hang out together. Golju doesn't believe him. He tells him he is not a fan of Shia anymore and drops the call. Jumtang decides to stop looking her up. Huju visits Jumtang, but only because his mom made him. Jumping meets him at the gate. He is worried things will get out of hand if Kojumi Shia. Jumtang takes the bag from Gushu and shuts the door in his face. Goroshu is pissed about this, so if he sneaks into the compound to spy on him, he's surprised when he sees Shia and he's all over her. At once he tries taking a photo with her, but she kicks him out of the house. Who sneaks in the next day and Jumpton kicks him out, but he keeps coming around until he finally meets. He offers her tuna and she takes it but throws it away. Shia asks Guzu to stay away from her. Goju is angry and he shouts at her, accusing her of pretending. Jumping rushes out to them and he stands between them. He asks Gozer to go out, but he grabs him and ends up in a scuffle. Huzu pushes Jumtang off. He renounces their friendship and walks away. Jumtang is angry, but when he turns around, he finds Shia shaky. He consoles her and asks him on a date later. On Jumping and Ju are seen walking toward the school library together. Ju, even Jumtang laugh at how good you had been showing up at Jumping's doorstep for the past few weeks. However, Shia had refused to see him each time after Ju picks up some books at the library. They're about to walk down a flight of stairs when Zhu loses her footing but jumped and catches her at the last minute, and they end up in an awkward situation. Jumtang notices that Zhu is visibly flustered by this, and he eases the tension by picking up her books. After Genting picks up a couple of books, he is surprised when Zhu calls out to him and asks if he could accompany her on Cultural Festival Day. Zhu reveals that she would be working as a patrol and setting up tents for the crowd, and Jumtang is initially hesitant about this, but after noticing the blush on Zhu's face, he agrees to accompany her while harboring hopes that she feels the same way about him. The next day, Jumtang and Shia are seen discussing on a bench when she asks if he has plans for Cultural Festival Day. Shintang tells Shia about his plans with Zhu, but she draws closer to him and tries teasing him into canceling out the first day of the Cultural Festival. Finally arrives, and Genting is visibly surprised when Shia strolls into the school premises while stealing a crowd's attention with her bold attire and stuff. Stunning looks, he hands her his jacket to stop people from staring so intently at her, but it only incites the crowd's attention. As they walk past, she spends the rest of the day hanging out with Jumping, and they have fun with Jumtang's friends. Later on, they stop by a booth to take some pictures, but the booth attendant is not around. They eventually decide to wait for the attendant, but after waiting for a while, Shia excuses herself. A few moments later, a lady wearing a chicken head appears and tells Jumping that she is the booth attendant. She also apologizes for keeping Jimtang waiting, but it turns out to be Ruino. They're both excited to reunite again, but before they could exchange contacts, she arrives and grabs Genting's hands while telling him that she is ready to leave. Ruben was hurt by this, as she immediately assumes that they're dating on their way back home. Shia asks Jumping if he had fun because she was around, and Jumping tells her that he did. Chanting feels a twinge of guilt as he realizes that he was starting to lose feelings for Zhu. He also regrets not making a move on her because you had not encouraged him to tell her his feelings on the rooftop the other day, but he decides not to shy away from his feelings for Shia any longer. Jumping and cracks a joke, and Shia laughs hard at this, but unknown to them, Zhu watches them from a corner with an indecipherable expression on her face. She recalls how she had sent a message to Jumping to remind him about the festival, but Chunting had excused himself, and she sadly realizes that Jumping's feelings for her had changed while Jump taking Shia stroll around. The campus in oblivion to Zoo's jealousy, they come across a large crowd in front of a huge stage. Shia asks Janting if they can watch the show, and Jumtang wonders if Shia misses start on the show's MC makes an appearance and tells the audience that 5 people would be allowed to openly confess there. Love for a crush through a dance performance or a song, and she asks people to volunteer. Shia steps out in front of the crowd, and Jumping tries to stop her as he is stunned by their actions, but the crowd prevents him from getting through to her. Shia introduces herself to the audience, and the crowd goes wild as they realize that she is La Shia, the most famous member of Dream Sweep. Shia tells the MC that she'll be singing a song, and Genting wonders if Shia has someone that she likes and if it was a remote chance that this person was him. However, Shia gets last minute jitters in and the air gets tense with tension as she stays silent. Just when the MC decides to kick Shia hostage, Zoo comes to her rescue and asks if she can sing a song before Shia. Zoo tells the audience that her song is dedicated to a crush. However, she could not reveal his name because emotions were private feelings that should only be shown to a significant other. While Zoo sings in an offbeat tune, the crowd receives her warmly, and Shia steps off the stage chanting wonders because Zoo's crush is, and whether or not she has a romantic interest in him. However, all thoughts of Zhu fly out of his head as he notices Shia's pain-stricken expression. A few days later, Jim Tank gets word that Shia had refused to leave her room after that night, so he decides to check up on her. Jim Tank knocks on Shreya's door repeatedly, and he's surprised when the door opens and he is suddenly pulled in. Shia presses Jim Tang against the wall of her bedroom, and they gaze intently at each other. Their hormones gain control of them, and Jumting kisses Shia as he realizes that he has fallen in love with her. Genting tries to leave after realizing that Shia is safe. However, she persuades him not to go as Ruino was now in the living room, and she would suspect that something was going on between them if he went out. At that moment, Jumting kisses Shia again, and they end up on the bed. However, Jumting restrains himself as he realizes that he is probably the only one that butterflies in his stomach, but he thinks back to his past experiences with Shia and wonders if she feels the same way. Jumting waits until the sexual tension reduces before telling Shia that no one was talking about her nervous breakdown. The show, as you had come to her rescue, had managed to steal the heart of everyone in the show. He also tells her Ju was now the talk of the town and advises Shia to thank you by buying her dinner, but out of jealousy, Shia flares up and tells Jumping that she never asked for Zoo's help, and Zoo's voice was horrendous. She also tells Junting that the other volunteers performed horribly, and she wondered how people had enjoyed that performance when she could have done way better. John Tang is annoyed by her outbursts, so if he leaves her room in anger, but as soon as Jumping steps out of Shia's room, he encounters Ruino, who implies that he's the reason why Shia had not left her room for days, but he ignores her and leaves that night. Junting volunteers the cultural festival and works along inside you. He decides to ask her who she had sung for the previous night, but Ju almost runs into a train. Chanting saves her at the last minute, and they're stuck gazing at each other for a long while, but Zhu pretends as if she had never heard the question, and Jumping says nothing about this. Chanting arrives homely, and Shia apologizes to him and asks why he was avoiding her. He reminds her that she had told him that they could only be friends and friends to hold hands. Chanting tells Shia that he has homework to do and tries to go back inside, but Shia asks him if his homework is more important than she is, and Jumping tells her that it is. Shia is hurt by this, and she hugs him from the back and tells him that they'll see how long he could ignore her. But Jumping asks Shia if their little moments meant anything to her or she was just toying with him. He tells her to stop giving him false hope and reveals that he hates himself for wishful thinking caused the same thing had happened with Zhu. That night, Shia releases Jumtang's hand and says nothing, and Jumping heads into the house. Jumtang is stunned when he steps into the house and sees Yu, who reveals that Shia had invited her for a girls' night out. You've noticed the tension between Shia and Jumtang, and excuses herself for a minute. After she leaves, Jumping asks Shia what she's trying to do by inviting you, and Shia reveals that she plans to vent to her about her boy troubles and asks why a boy who used to flirt with her was no longer interested in her. Chomtang is scared that this might ruin his chances with Ju, and Shia tries to take advantage of the situation by holding his hand, but Ju chooses that moment to walk in, and Jumping drops Xia's hands like hot water the next day. Jiantang is surprised. When news spread through his school that Shia, the former member of Dream Suite, is on campus, Jiantang notices Guju rushing off to meet her, so he locates Xia and grabs her by the hand before running off with her. They pause to catch their breaths, and Jumping asks Xia why she decided to show up. Xia tells Jumping that he had refused to hang out with her because he had one thing or the other to do at school, so she thought she might visit him at school. She asks Jiantang if he would like to get some drinks with her, and Jumping refuses, however he agrees after considering her relentlessness. Jiantang tells Xia that he'll get some drinks at the liquor store and asks her to head back home. Without him in the liquor store, Jiantang runs into Rooney, who is vexed that Jumped and confessed his feelings for her and went on a flirt with Xia. Rooney confronts Jumping about this and asks him to fully ignore Xia if he plans on doing so, and Jumping tells her that. He originally planned to ignore her, however her efforts to catch his attention was so cute that it was hard to ignore Ruwani, and Jiantang head back home together, and they run into a pervert who had been following Xia, and taking her picture she asks if Jiantang had seen the stranger's face, but Jumping tells her that he didn't. After the incident, they head back home together, but they're stuck inside for days due to the bad weather. Jiantang notices that Xia and Ruini have been acting unusually for the past few days, so if he decides to break the tension by organizing a barbecue party, he invites you. And his male best friends Woju and Yun's Boshu bring Sifu and apologizes to Xia for stalking her for days, and Xia accepts his apology. After a while, Xia tells the others what it's like to be a celebrity and how she was always followed by paparazzi whose cameras were often directed at her lower body. She further reveals that celebrities had no personal lives and were often judged by fans and trolls alike, and Jumping finally understands the reason for Xia's hostile behavior toward him during their first meeting. Just then, Gashu notices a young man with a camera taking pictures of Xia through the fence. The man realizes that he has been caught by Gushu, and he runs off before Goju gets a hold of him, but Chanting chases after him and catches up to him. They drive the stalker into the compound. After checking through his camera, they find many pictures of Xia. Jiantang suggests that they call the police, but Xia tells them that she had been in the same situation on countless occasions and the police had done nothing each time because apparently they were just harmless pictures and she had not been touched or physically assaulted. Chanting asks what they can do with the stalker, and Xia suggests that Jiantang uses a beer bottle to rough him up a little bit. However, Jiantang hesitates as he hates the thought of violence. Gozu decides to do the needful, and Jumping stops him. Xia leaves the scene in tears, and Jumping and Youngs argue with Gashu on what to do. However, they're all alarmed when Zhu smashes a bottle on the stalker's face and threatens him. Kuju beams at Zhu and Pride Butt. Youngs and Jumping are both surprised that Zhu is capable of such violence. Zhu's outburst reminds Jumping of how Zhu had run away from her overbearing and over-controlling father. In high school, he recalls that Zhu only ever has an outburst whenever she has too many negative emotions piled up, and he wonders what was responsible for his youth outburst. Youngs brings Jumping out of his trance by telling him that they could no longer bring the police into this situation as they could all be convicted for ganging up against the stalker and harming him with a sharp object, but Gashu devises a way to convince the stalker to keep his mouth shut. Later on, Jumping tells Xia that Zhu had beat me assaulter with a broken bottle, and he further reveals that they had followed him home to erase any photos of Xia from his cloud and flash drive with the threat that they would roughen him up if he was ever caught taking pictures of. Xia hugs Jumping and kisses his hand in appreciation before leaving her room for the first time in a while. Rito and Zhu arrive shortly after, and they hug Xia and offer her their support all through this horrendous situation. The next day, Jiantang writes his last paper and plops down on the couch. Shiga welcomes him and asks why he's so exhausted, but he reveals that he has not had any sleep in the past 3 days as he had stayed up overnight to study for his exam. Xia suggests that they take a break and go on a vacation somewhere, and Jumping agrees with her. Jumping raises his blanket over to look at Xia. but he's surprised to see her staring at him with a blush and thoughtful expression on her face. Chanting realizes that she must have been having perverted thoughts about him, and he calls her out for it. But before Shia could defend herself, the doorbell rings and they're surprised to meet Zhu with a large suitcase. Zhu asks if she can move in for a few months and explains that something came up at home, but Jumping tells him he's heading out. While taking a stroll, Janting worries about why Zhu moved in, as he recalls that she had also run away from home after getting into trouble with her dad in high school. He considers asking her after he gets back home. He realizes that Zhu had always been a closed book, and she would only tell him if she wanted to. Genting walks around for a while, and he ends up running into Ruino, who was seated at an open bar close to the campus waterside. Ruino realizes that Jumping has no feelings for her, but she believes that this is solely her fault, as she had never acted on her feelings. Unlike Shea, she refuses the attempts of the other men at the bar and grabs Genting's hand before telling him that she's going to try harder to win his heart. Jumping is stunned by her declarations, but he accompanies her to different tourist attractions in the area. Jumping and Ruino end up spending the night out, and they head back home together with Ruino's arms wrapped around Jontang. However, their mood is instantly spoiled as they run into Shia by the front door. Shia flicks her lighter and clarifies that they spent the night together. Jantang explains that he had visited a campus attraction with Ruino, but she had hurt her leg along the way, so they had spent the night at a hospital. He further reveals that Ruino had to lean on him to get her footing, but Shia says nothing and walks back inside. Jemtang is stunned by Shia's indifference, as he half expected her to throw a tantrum, but he drops Ruiner's arm and walks back inside. On getting inside, Jumping gets a text from Shia asking him to take a power nap and meet her outside in the evening. Shanting sets an alarm before plopping down on his bed, and he wakes up to his alarm. In the evening, he wonders why Shia asked him to meet up with her, but he realizes that she probably wanted to get something at the convenience store, so he steps out to meet her in his pajamas. Shuya asks Jumping to follow her to different places, and they end up staying out for a long while. Jemtang is bothered by Shia's earlier display of indifference, so he asks Shia why she had said nothing earlier that morning. Shredded cheekily tells Jumping that she wasn't bothered by him and Ruino, since she was extremely sure that nothing could happen between them. Besides, if he had such a gorgeous celebrity like herself living downstairs, why would he fall in love anyone else? Chanting is hurt by this, as he realizes that she's actually right. He suggests that they head back home since it's getting pretty late already, but she asks him to hang out with her for a little longer. She asks Genting to give her a piggyback ride because she's hurt her leg, and Jumping realizes that Shia was trying to do every single thing he did with Ruino. He laughs in her antics, but he gives in her request. Shia asks him to take her to a restaurant, and Jumtang is pissed at this as he realizes that they're on a date. At the restaurant, Shia tells Jumtang that she'll be hanging out with someone the next day, and Jumping gets jealous about this. He asks who it is, and she asks if he wants it to be a boy or a girl. Genting excuses himself to go to the bathroom and tries convincing himself that he doesn't care who she hangs out with. He heads back to the restaurant and notices numerous boys lining up to talk to her. Kenting walks over to one of them and tells him that he's with her, but the boy tells him that he's underdressed and asks him to wait for his turn. Genting fumes at this and tells Shaya that he wants her to go out with a girl, and she laughs and tells the offending male that she's with Jumtang, and Shia head back home afterward, but the next morning Shia wakes up with a hangover. Jemting tries convincing her to stay at home, but Shia doesn't listen to, watches them, and remarks that they seem to have had way too many drinks the other night, but Jumping bows his head in guilt. Shia cleans up and tells Jumtang that she's planning on meeting up with Xian, the leader of Dream Suite, and her former best friend. Rain starts falling, but Shia picks up an umbrella and heads out. While Jumping stares at her in worry on her way to science, Shia remembers how she used to be so close to her and how things had changed for the worse after they got famous. They never had any private time to hang out, and they were often asked to wear revealing clothing to attract the attention of the crowd. She also recalls how the paparazzi had taken indecent pictures of her on numerous occasions, but after she had complained to the police and their manager, she had been told that all press was good press. Shia eventually developed issues with her mental health and started laughing to hide her tears in public when Xia couldn't take the pressure of the industry anymore. She decided to leave show business. She recalls how Cyan had begged her to stay after she learned of her decision, but Xia had simply smiled at her and told her she couldn't take it anymore. At the restaurant, Cyan and Xia exchange pleasantries, but Cyan notices that Xia is drinking a fattening drink and calls her out for this. She asks like Cyan cares about her physical appearance, but Cyan asks if she's happy. Shay tells her that she's doing fine in California and tells her to live a fulfilling life because she owes her that much. She also asks her to love whoever she wants to love and eat. Whenever she feels like eating on behalf of the team members, after Shan leaves, Xia cries happily and walks out of the restaurant without using an umbrella. She makes up her mind to love whoever she loves and do whatever her heart desires. On getting home, Xia meets Jumping at the front and realizes that she likes everything about him, from his physical appearance to his mannerisms. Jumping is visibly concerned as to why. She failed to use an umbrella, but Xia grabs his arm and kisses him in broad daylight. Jumping gets lost in the kiss, but their little moment is broken as the front door opens and Ruin steps up. To see them kissing, Ruino is visibly hurt by this, as she assumes that Jumping and Xia are now an item. But Jumping rushes inside. Embarrassment. Jemtang's phone vibrates and he realizes that he has gotten a text from his dad telling him it's his mom's birthday. Jumping rushes over to his family and meets them celebrating the occasion at a restaurant. During lunch, is teased by his family about how he had always been so crazy about Zhu that he had even applied to the same university as she did. Jantang is embarrassed of the fact that his entire family was well aware of his feelings for Zhu, but he says nothing. His sister questions him about whether he had finally managed to confess his feelings for Zhu, or if he was finally dating someone else, but they're all disappointed in him as he says no. At his family house, Jomtin gets a call from Xia, who tells him about her meeting with Cyan. She tells him that Cyan had asked her to live her life to the fullest and she planned on doing exactly that. She also reveals that she wants to fall in love with someone and get a public confession. Xia tells Jumping that cannibals arranged in a heart formation and a large bouquet of roses would be really nice, and Genting realizes that she's implying that she likes him. Jumping drops on the bed as Xia tells him not to forget her idea of a public confession before hanging the call. He stares sadly at a picture of him and Zhu during high school, and just then a text arrives from Zhu, who asks if he would like to get some drinks and hang out with the others. After Junting arrives at school, Youngs and Guzu come by and they hang out with the girls. They eventually run out of drinks, and Genting volunteers to get some for them before stepping out. Genting glances at Xia while harboring secret hopes that she would ask to accompany him, but she says nothing. The other thing walks out alone, but he is pleasantly surprised when he is joined by Xia on their way back from the convenience store. Xia tries to hold on to Jumtang, but Jumping stops her. She complains about this, but Genting blushes as he reveals that he'd been embarrassed when Rowanina caught them kissing the other day. Xia pins Jumtang against a wall and asks why he had noticed Ruining when they were having a moment. She tells him to focus on her this time before kissing him, but Zhu steps out to throw out some garbage and sees them kissing. Jemtang's eyes widen as he opens his eyes to seize you. The series ends with all hopes of more drama to come as you stares at Jumtang for sad eyes.